This is the LEGO Star Wars Summer 2022 set number 75337 ATTE Walker. With 1,082 pieces, it retails for $140 in the United States, and it is by far the most hyped set of the summer 2022 wave for LEGO Star Wars, and in this review, we'll find out if it lives up to that hype and if it's worth the $140 price tag. To get us started, we do have 8 minifigs. We'll take a closer look at those in a moment, talking quickly about the box art. We've got Utapau in the background, so this is an Episode 3 set, obviously. However, they did go with the Clone Wars box art stripe and trooper down there, so a little bit of a puzzling decision to me with the box art, as always. A sliver of the ATTE can be seen on the side art, and around back we get a rear view of that ATTE, and it highlights some key features from the set, as well as just showing off kind of a different battle orientation with the Battle Droids there. It comes with the ugly rendered instruction manual. You have 6 numbered bags to complete the model, and in the very back it has advertising for all the other summer 2022 LEGO Star Wars sets, of which you can check out reviews of on my channel. On the box, LEGO calls this the 2/12 Clone Gunner, although in Star Wars lore, I'm not sure if a 2/12 Clone Gunner in particular exists, but certainly Phase 2 Clone Gunners exist. We've had a minifigure of one in the 2017 Republic fighter tank, and this ultimately is a generally good-looking minifig, and in a lot of ways an upgrade over that 2017 version of the figure, particularly with like the straps on the torso. They've added a bit of tan there, which I really like over the old figure, which just used a plain white color for the straps. So yeah, just a bit more depth to that torso design front and back that I really like, and of course the nicely printed legs and feet with the white hips. So with all these new clones, you end up with a pretty distinct look because of those hips, and now because of the helmets, you have this giant hole in the side of the helmet, and yes, it does add the ability to attach things, and in a lot of cases I think that is not what's going to be being done with these helmets, and obviously they added the holes for Phase 2 Cody. We'll get to that in a second, but when you have a figure like this, the holes, to me, are quite distracting because they are drilled well above where they should be and where they would look good, which is obviously where that bump is right below it. That's where on like the Mandalorians or the Phase 1 clone troopers of years past that had holes, they would be drilled. And in this case, they're drilled above that. Yeah, it just looks funky to me. It's not something that I can particularly look past very easily because it's just, I don't know, it sticks out like a sore thumb for me. But if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And that's just how it's going to be. So that is the new Clone Gunner. Pretty decent figure overall. This is the new 2/12 Trooper. There's 3 of them included in the set, which is amazing, but this figure is a big departure from what we had in years past with 2/12 Troopers. It, of course, replaces the black hips for white hips, as well as the orange arms for white arms, and as well, the helmet hole. So this is a pretty big difference from that old 2/12 Trooper, and some people are going to like it, some people not so much. I still, like I said, wish the holes were not here for figures that aren't making use of them, quite frankly, and one issue that this figure is having is that the helmets are printed poorly. So at the front of the helmet on the top there, where the orange comes down to a point, you're supposed to be able to see the point. However, LEGO's printing is messed up and you don't have the point there. Perhaps it's something that'll be fixed in future runs of the product, but for a premium product that's charging a premium price at $140 here, you would expect to be getting the best possible quality, and that's just not what we're seeing, unfortunately. It's something that I'm probably going to hit up LEGO customer service at some point and ask them to replace, because I quite frankly think it looks bad like this. And underneath each of their helmets, you'll just get one of those regular Clone Trooper heads. Pretty standard, run-of-the-mill Clone Troopers for the most part, outside of the printing errors that seem to be happening. A figure that needs no introduction, Phase 2 Commander Cody here. This is one that we have been waiting a long time for, and the fan demand has finally driven LEGO to go mad and actually make the figure. It generally looks pretty good to me. I'm very happy with it. Obviously, I think it looks better than the other 2/12 Troopers with the helmet holes, because the helmet holes are actually being filled and put to use. So in this case, I have no qualms with the helmet. In fact, this helmet was specifically made so that they could make a Phase 2 Cody, I think. Although I would have certainly preferred a just whole custom dual mold like they had for the Phase 2 Cody buildable figure. I think that would have looked ideal. I think that the visor, while a fine piece to use here, it was a sensible piece to use here, it would have been preferable to get something new, something a little bit more shallow, because it honestly in person does look a little bit derpy. It's a piece from 2008, a piece made to go with old styles of Clone Troopers, never intended to grace the 2013 style Phase 2 helmet. So I think it doesn't look the greatest, but it is a Phase 2 Cody. It is here. So if we as fans asked for it. We have to be happy with what they give us, I guess. The torso is very accurate, nicely detailed. They've got the proper rank markings on him and everything. I also really like the detail on the legs. I was doing some cross-checking with reference material from the movie, and it looks just spot on there. Very happy with that. On the back, we've got the jetpack. Unfortunately, no physical jetpack in this case. Of course, if they had a jetpack that looked similar to the mold that they have, I suppose they would have used that, but they, of course, wanted to go the cheap route, not make a new mold for a jetpack, and so they just printed it onto the back. And then under the helmet, somewhat surprisingly, they did give Commander Cody a special face. He's just got a bit of an angrier looking clone trooper face versus the rest of the clones in the set. Lastly, as far as minifigs go, it does include 3 battle droids. Everyone knows what they're getting with battle droids at this point. When the last Republic era ATT literally only included 1 clone trooper, seeing all of these clones in one ATT set just makes me happy. I'm so used to getting 1 or 2 clone troopers in a clone set, getting 5 is just so amazing. Helmet holes aside, as well as maybe a lack of a super battle droid or 2, this is just a fantastic character selection for this set, and something that I see 5, 10, 15 years down the line being something we look back at very fondly and as, quite frankly, legendary, like we think of sets like the Republic dropship with AT-OT. Finally, after nearly 20 years, we have the perfect Lego Star Wars Spider Droid. That's right, they have really perfected the design here. I actually think it looks really good. Unfortunately, it's super inaccurate for the set we have here, which really should include a crab droid. It's been 17 years, we haven't gotten a Lego Star Wars crab droid. Crab droids were pretty prominent on Utapau, and unfortunately the Lego Star Wars designers must have just not seen them. I honestly cannot explain away why there's a Spider Droid in this set instead of a crab droid. But on its own merits, as a Spider Droid, it's good. They did remove the stud shooter on this guy from the previous version, so this one looks a little bit less derpy, so I really like that. It does feel a little bit more weak than some of the previous versions, where the joints will kind of break off, especially on the front 2 legs, because they're hitting that little extension for the blaster. Not really sure why that's a thing on this set versus the older ones, but that's just something I've noticed in my experience. But the cannon can move up and down on the front as well. Very good Spider Droid, but it shouldn't be in the set. We should have gotten our first Lego Crab Droid here. This is a very good ATTE model, perhaps the best they've ever made, and in my opinion, it's certainly the most refined. All of the little things that I may have found annoying about some previous ATTE models seem to have been solved for the most part, starting with a lot of the external gaps. What I noticed while I was building this, when I was like putting all the panels on, is that everything is pretty tight here. There's no really large gaps that you can like see into the interior with. I mean, there's still going to be some small gaps. It's not going to be perfect. It's not a UCS set, but it is more than good enough here. We have these large gray panels in here that really block off a lot of what in years past probably would have been a giant gap where you could see right into the interior, but here it's all kind of armored up, and I really like the way they were able to do that. I think it looks super good, especially when you get to look at it from that side angle that is just kind of all gray the way it should be. Working our way back to the front, we see a beautiful cockpit which has 4 cannons all around it, and these cannons are all independently movable, and thankfully they don't break off from the model when you move them. That is something that in years past may have been an issue, but here they work flawlessly, which I really like and appreciate. We have a couple of white, floodlights, I suppose, at the front, and then some yellow caution, or like, I'm an ATTE, watch out lights, I guess. And then the grating on the front of the cockpit is that piece that they've used, I think, for the last couple models. It just works really good, and no reason to use anything different. And then one thing that I really liked about this is they didn't really use any stickers here for the siding. Like in years past, they'd use a sticker to do like a half dark red color, and it wouldn't line up perfectly ever. So it's definitely nice to see them just move away from the sticker altogether and create a very good all brick built design. To pull this out, you just pull straight on it, and you can see it pops out. There's your cockpit. You are going to have, instead of a control panel, you just have a couple of antenna pieces which are going to allow a clone trooper to control the walker. One great thing about this is that it does sit down flat on the ground, and so you don't actually have to like hold it weird, or it doesn't bend over. Like, it's perfect like that. That's really great. It's one of those smart things that honestly I didn't even think of as a particular problem with sets in years past, but immediately when you set it down, you'll notice it stands up. There's a Technic rod inside, which definitely adds to the strength of the connection for the cockpit here, so it doesn't fall out, and it kind of smoothly slides in and then gets pushed into place, kind of tightens up there near the end, and it just fits in perfectly. Love that. Got the 212 trooper up there. The rest of the top of the ATTE's armor looks very good. Obviously I talked about the lack of gaps, but it also has really good detail on top, like that Republic logo. We've got a little bit of damage to the armor. On the very back, we've got a couple of cannons which are also independently movable and don't break off or like significantly affect the model, which is awesome again. And then then on the other side, we're going to see some very similar armor damage and plating, as well as another Republic logo. That whole top side of armor looks very good. Now, on the very, very top of this ATTE, we've got a nice smooth look, which is something I don't think we've had this smooth on an ATTE before. Really like that. Nice armor damage and detail on all of this. And then up here, we've got another armor piece of sticker, and we've got the cannon, and the cannon on this is probably the best cannon I've seen on an ATTE. This is fantastic. There are a couple of things that I find very satisfying about it. So it doesn't sag a lot. You can see it's actually straight on there. It's not like slightly down like that, like it's not too heavy or whatever. Like whatever they've done, they've got it down to hold its own weight, and I really like that. Now this piece here and this slope piece at the front are just very satisfying when you lift it up twice like that. There's a printed control panel on the top, as well as a tiled seat for your clone gunner to man the cannon. And if you want to turn this, it does swivel like so. He does get a little bit jumpy in there because the spacing isn't perfect and there's no studs at the bottom holding him down. So yeah, that's a little bit weird to me, but it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's not something that's going to massively affect your experience. And then there's a couple of stud shooters on either side, which of course you just push down like that and they fly off. Very good play function for kids. Not something that I obviously find too appealing for an adult collector. Now I have to talk about the feet and the legs. They make no use of rubber bands here, so it's all just kind of natural slack in the legs there, and the tightness of it too. They don't have too much range of motion, which isn't a bad thing here. You don't really need to recreate the walker walking too much. You just need to recreate the look of it in its stance, and I think they've done an excellent job of that here. It's got a pretty low to the ground stance. I don't think it's the lowest they've ever had, because that 2003 ATTE was really low. Another thing they did here is they completely changed the shape of the feet from years past. These are a much flatter foot than we've had, as well as added some gear teeth to the side of like the ankle. That's another detail that has been completely lacking in years past and is super accurate. Very nice to see. Now, if you were curious, the side leg does have a really good range of motion. There is, of course, a handle on top of the set. We've seen handles a million times on LEGO Star Wars sets, and this one is no different. It does lean forward quite a bit. It's a bit heavier at the front than it is the back, but that's not something that's going to be a problem here. You just hold the handle and it's fine. It's a strong handle, and no, it will not connect to the Republic dropship with ATOT. The handle is not made to do that in any way, shape, or form. It's not happening, fellas. Before we take a look at the exquisite interior, this is the bottom of the ATT. Now you know what the belly of the beast looks like, and it's standing on its own. Isn't that crazy? This is genuinely something they should be selling you as a feature. The ATT in the Clone Wars was able to basically jump up like this, and especially on Ryloth, I remember, just scale a vertical wall. And so that's essentially what it's doing here completely on its own. I got nothing else holding it up. I just set it back, and it worked. I guess I never really tried this on my older ATTs, but I can't imagine it works. This is awesome. I love this, because this would have been so cool to me in 2008 after having just watched that Clone Wars movie, being able to prop my ATT up the same way it did on Ryloth. To access the front section of the interior is really easy. All you have to do is lift up on the cannon on the top. You get 2 spots like that, and then I would lift this up 1 and 2 again, and then just pull it straight out, and you have full access to that interior there. Luckily, there is an interior in the front. In 2013, we didn't get a front interior for that ATT, so getting one here, I think, is fantastic. There's what looks like a doorway at the back, which unfortunately doesn't actually work as like a pass-through to the back interior section, because there's going to end up being the Technic workings for the handle in there. You can see it moving as I pull on the handle. And then we end up with a few things we can pull out, which you can tell all have this little handle piece here. So we have a crate, we have this piece here, I'll show you what's on it in a second, and a small thing to hold some troops. This piece here with a pair of thermal detonators on it. Printed pieces are nice. Then we have this crate here. Inside, there's actually a pair of white binoculars. That's a decent inclusion. And then over here, we've got a wrench attached to this little platform, so you can do some work with the ATT if you have to, and then you can take any of your 212 troopers or any other clone troopers or figures from your collection and sit them down like so, and you can fit 2 troops on here. The way they did the back paneling for the walker is genius. So we actually have a connection between the very back panel here and the top back panel. You can see these pieces here basically are the connection, and so you're gonna have to pull down on this if you want to open up and access the back side of the ATT's interior. And so we can just place that down, and we can lift this up, pull these out just like the front side, and like that is a very open access area. That's the most open access interior to an ATT we've ever had. That is awesome. What you see at the very back is a control panel targeting system for those back cannons. Flanking that on either side are 2 red lights, basically brake lights for the ATTE. And then behind all that, there's actually 4 more seats, which brings us to a total of 7 troop carrying seats in this ATT, and basically to fill this whole thing, you're going to need 9 troopers, even though it only includes 5, so maybe a potential for a battle pack in the future. There's a fire extinguisher in the middle there instead of a Palpatine hologram. They also included a coffee cup over here instead of a Palpatine hologram for Phase 2 Cody. There's also a small weapons rack at the back here. It can hold 2 weapons. And then there's actually another blank spot here on the other side that could have held more weapons, but unfortunately there's just nothing of the sort included for that other side. But that's what it looks like with the weapons there. And then we can take Commander Cody, maybe sit him here, manning the cannons at the back, and then your other 212 trooper could go here perhaps, and obviously it would look much cooler if they were all filled in. This is what it looks like stuffed in with 5 clone troopers. In case you were curious, that's what it looks like with more of the panels closed. Yeah, they fit in there just fine. This set has absolutely blown me away. There are so many things that it does right, especially that interior of the ATT, probably the best interior on a Lego clone set I've ever seen. It included all these fun accessories and yet lacked the scene-accurate accessory with a Palpatine hologram. Doesn't make any sense to me, but that's Lego Star Wars for you at times. And of course, this little turd showed its face again in this set. You know, don't really understand that either. But generally, obviously, a very good set and something that I'm going to peg a score of 9 out of 10 onto. I'll probably end up buying like 5 of these. I think it's a fantastic display model. It'd probably go decently nice next to a UCS gunship, although obviously the sizing wouldn't make a ton of sense next to each other. Very hopeful for a 212 battle pack to add more troops to the battle for this, because it's definitely needed to fill out that ATT, much like they released a Snowtrooper battle pack so you could fill up your AT-ATs over there. I'm hoping in 2023 we'll see something like that here. If you guys do decide you want to purchase this set, please use the affiliate links in the description below for your preferred retailer. It helps support the channel, and you can check out more LEGO Star Wars Summer 2022 set reviews on the end screen now.